did it, Zach. He's done it.
Welcome to Cafe Racer Garage. I am Dan, giving you the skills and inspiration that you need to build a motorcycle that you can be proud of. Today, I really want to break apart the CB750 engine, get it in pieces so I can get down to the bottom of it and see if we can find that rattling noise that I've been experiencing. So, let's get into it. So you can see the cams have already been removed. I have taken them out when I first started to disassemble this, when I thought it was just the cam chain tensioner, but it wasn't that, so that's when I put it back together and vapor blasted it. You'll also see me using the drill periodically, and that's just because I want to speed up the process of actually getting those bolts out as quick as possible. I'll always crack the thread to make sure that they're loose and then just undo them really fast with the drill. I'm definitely the kind of person that likes to learn as I go. I have the workshop manual sitting there just in case I do get stuck. Pulling it apart isn't exactly a hard thing to do. You just need a little bit of common sense when you're undoing a whole bunch of bolts or nuts. Just remember that this has been torqued down, so if you do undo them, try and undo them maybe in a sequence, little bit by little bit, rather than just undo all of them at one end and then leave the other end till you get to it, because you could cause a few problems if you do that. That is what is recommended most of the time when you're building engines. I've built a few engines in the past, but this is my first motorcycle engine. It's a lot smaller than anything I've worked on, so let's do it and see what happens. So I made that classic mistake of thinking I'd undone all the bolts, but there's a few sneaky ones still in the center that I'd missed. I don't know why, but something about this engine, or pulling this apart when it was completely running and I was happy with it, apart from that small little rattle, I just kind of felt like it was a pointless procedure and it was a lot of work just to try and stop a rattle. But it needs to be done, and I've got to dive in and actually get it finished so that it is running perfectly smooth. I'm not going to be rebuilding this engine and making it go any faster, or putting anything bigger in it, bigger cams, or boring out the cylinders. I'm not going to do any of that. The only reason is because this is not really going to be a race bike. It's just purely for the enjoyment of having a cafe racer or a brat style motorcycle and cruise around in it. It's not really for racing anything. So one area that I was really concerned about some of the blast media getting into was this here. That's just an O-ring that press fits into there and keeps out all the dirties and obviously keeps the oil from coming back out. And it's completely sealed. There's absolutely nothing, no grit or anything in there. So I'm really happy with that. So what I'm working on now is trying to remove this cylinder head, which is this section here. It should come up and off straight up over these studs here, but it's not. It's not wanting to play the game. It's probably never been removed since like 93 when it was built. And I've undone the nuts here and the same on the other side. And I've even sprayed them with some of this guy here. This is WD-40, so any sort of penetrating oil will work. That's probably not the best. You probably can get better stuff than this. It's really tempting to get like a screwdriver and just get in there and just start prying it. But I tell you what, if you do that, you will be in a world of pain. You'll end up breaking things, and I've learned from experience. So try and avoid doing that. It's nighttime now. I'm probably going to keep spraying it with this and working my way around with the soft blow hammer and just tapping it, even on those fins. As long as it's flat on the fins on this section here, it should be fine. It's not going to break them. And I'll just keep going around and around and also tapping up a little bit and just take my time. And like I said, let that penetrating oil work overnight if I have to. And hopefully tomorrow morning, the thing will come off. But alternatively, I could just use force and end up breaking something, which you really don't want to do. It's definitely a bit of a challenge, but it's the point of it being easy. That would be no fun at all. So it's currently the next day. I'm about to have another go at trying to get this cylinder head off, and from my Instagram story last night, it seems like I'm not the only one who has issues with this. A few of the ideas that came through, one, I was going to actually do plastic wedges and try and, you know, work my way around, which I may do. Now, a few of the other ideas were using hardwood wedges, using Teflon wedges, even going to the point of actually getting, which was from my friend Tom in Canada, he actually said get 50 part acetone and 50 part transmission fluid and put it down where the studs are. And generally, you know, it should be able to loosen it up a little bit. I don't know how that works, but it's definitely worth a go because everything's coming apart anyway, so all that's going to be flushed out. So this engine is definitely not playing easy. I've undone all the bolts this time and I've put that solution down there, left it overnight, but it's not coming free. However, I have an idea. So as you can see, my method here, I've got it suspended between two milk crates, which seems to be working actually quite well. But unfortunately it's working too well on one side compared to the other. As you can see, it's a really big gap here compared to the other side, which is only small, which is going to bind up and it's not going to come out. It needs to come out straight up, can't come out at an angle at all. So I might close that gap on this side just a little bit and just try and get it to even up a bit so we can get it out. I've never actually seen anybody removing a cylinder head quite like this before. It works quite well. I'm going to call this one my seesaw method. This area here was a little bit sus when I first was blasting around it, so I didn't go too hard around it, but I put a couple of O-rings on there. As you can see, one actually split. That's just to sort of protect it a bit, to try and prevent anything getting in there. And nothing really did. It's perfect. It's just oil, which is really good. I'm really happy with that. So this guy here is the front sprocket casing. I think it's called the countershaft bearing cover, and it's been broken here at some point. As you can see, it's been broken here by me and also here. I don't know if it's maybe a weak cast or what's happened, but this one was probably, you know, was going to happen anyway, but I don't know what happened here and here. It just seems like there's a lot of breakages on the one part. So I think rather than trying to repair any of this, I'm just going to try and source a new one. One of the other areas I was a bit suspect on anything getting in was this here. This is the oil pickup for the oil cooler. And as you can see, there's like a little trapment on the inside, so nothing has gotten in there at all. There's absolutely no media whatsoever gotten inside. So another win. I first bought this impact driver a long time ago and I never actually got to use it. For the job that I actually bought it for, I didn't end up needing it. But as you can see, it's brand new and it's going to get some use today. Someone had a good hard go at getting these guys in or out, I'm not too sure, but really messed them up. So I'm going to replace them, but I do need to get them out first. So impact driver it is. Voila. So that's the model of impact driver that I'm using. I'll find a link and leave it in the description if I can find it on Amazon for you. So this is the last casing I need to separate in order to get down to where I think that rattle is coming from. And I've got my good friend Bart to come give me a hand. I'm using the same pieces of steel that I used when I pulled the engine out of the motorcycle itself. Hey! He's done it. Nice, just there, man. Sweet. There it is. Yep, perfect. This is basically the bottom end of the engine. It's upside down at the moment. As you can see, the pistons are hanging down here. And I've got one chain, which is the cam chain, and this chain is the alternator chain. And this is the problem, and I think I've discovered that this guy here, if you can see well enough, so this is the chain tensioner, and as you can see, there's quite a bit of play there, and that should definitely not be flopping around like that as far as I'm aware. Still got to dive into the workshop manual and read more about it. This is the I'm guessing the adjustment or the spring that pushes it down and tensions it, but it's not working. So I've got a couple options. I could try and figure this out and maybe see if there's an adjustment here, which I haven't done yet. Workshop manual's just sitting right there, so I could have a look at that and see if I can do it. Or alternatively, and what I will probably end up doing, because I don't want to just try and, you know, get this working and then find that it failed again and it's done the same thing because I've just pulled the engine apart. I don't want to do that again for no particular reason. If I was just to try and save a bit of money and not buy a new tensioner and a new chain, which I probably will do. I do need to order some more parts. I'm going to get piston rings. I've got to measure the bores, so I've got to buy some more tools because I don't have proper measuring tools to measure the bore, as well as a few other bits and pieces. So there's some tools that I've got to get. I could just drop this into somebody, and if you're going to do this, you could potentially drop your motor or whatever into someone and just get them to do the measurements for you. So don't forget to check out part 2, which I'll leave right here when it's ready. And if you want to see an engine completely sandblasted and painted on my CX500, I'll leave that video right here.